Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2008 animated film Kung Fu Panda. Now, Kung Fu Panda is one of those films that has a pretty big following. It was a hit when it came out with audiences and critics. It kickstarted a successful franchise, but it's a film that, in all honesty, I was never really as big of a fan of as other people were. The first time I saw it, I was honestly kind of underwhelmed by it. Like, I didn't think it was bad or anything. I just thought it was just all right. And then I watched it again after a while, and I still feel the same way about this movie. I just think that it's an okay, all right animated film. Uh, it has some great sequences in it, but I don't really think it amounts to being a great film. Um, but I know I'm in the minority on that because this film, for the most part, is praised. In one way, I could see why, but in another, I think this honestly could have been better, and I'll explain why later on. But as it is, it's still at the very least a harmless, enjoyable enough animated kids movie. Because that's really what it is. It's really a kids film. And it's one of the better ones. Like, it's not as dumb or annoying as some of the other animated kids films were from around this time, especially from DreamWorks. But I don't see modern masterpiece. Like, I don't see a classic, but that's just me. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film, though, I would like to give a special shout out to Ryan for requesting yet another review. And if there is another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal, my Patreon, or my Cash App. The links to all three are in the video description down below, and I will try to get your requests as soon as I possibly can. Now, Kung Fu Panda is directed by the duo of John Stevenson and Mark Osborne. And Mark Osborne actually uh, directed the live action sequence in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie prior to Kung Fu Panda. And he also directed the music video for Weird Al Yankovic's Jurassic Park, which I think is a pretty fun bit of trivia. John Stevenson, he was somebody who worked on a lot of the artwork for a lot of other DreamWorks animated films like Shrek, Shrek 2, Madagascar, Sinbad. So he was a DreamWorks guy, and Osborne was somebody who was really more of an outside talent because it seemed like he worked on a lot of Nickelodeon projects prior to co-directing this film. And I think directing wise, even though some of the action can kind of devolve into a little too much chaos for me, I think that this is a well directed film. I think that it's got some really dazzling, dynamic direction for animation. I think that the two directors, they have a style and a flair that definitely meshes well together, and I think that they really did a good job in terms of making Kung Fu Panda have this style and look and feel to it that's in a way kind of old school martial arts um mixed in with Chinese mythology and other elements like that, but also a little bit of some contemporary camera angles and other sort of techniques that were utilized for the film when it comes to the direction. In a lot of ways, it kind of reminds me a lot of Samurai Jack, which was a show that was on Cartoon Network. And I think that probably was intentional. And I don't know. I think Samurai Jack was already on TV by the time that Kung Fu Panda came out, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. And it's a film that has some very fluid animation, and the direction really does flow well throughout the film. And I think when it comes to just the direction, Kung Fu Panda, it really does deliver, and I think that is one of the aspects of the film that I definitely really liked and I really appreciated. The prison escape sequence alone features some really technically tremendous direction for the realm of CGI animation. So it's a film that I think definitely has that overall love and compassion for martial arts and for the kind of film that it is, and also a certain sense of seriousness. Like they take it seriously enough with the direction where the two of them know how to really allow certain sequences to resonate with certain kinds of emotion, whether it's a sequence is supposed to make you feel some sort of sense of fear or sadness or grief, or a sense of triumph. And I think that is not always the easiest thing to pull off in the realm of animation, to really make the animation come to life in a way that really connects emotionally. So I think in a lot of ways, in a multitude of ways, I really do feel the two of them, they they did a knockout job. They kicked things up another notch or two when it comes to their direction for Kung Fu Panda. The screenplay by Jonathan Abel and Glenn Berger. I think the script is really where I feel the film falters in any way. And I think it's because of the fact that I don't really feel, despite the moments that do provide a bit of an emotional punch, I don't think there is enough of that throughout the story to make me consistently compelled and engaged with it. I also don't think that there's enough with the Furious Five in particular to really make me like them as characters, and to really bond with them and really develop any sort of care for them beyond just the bare a minimum. And I also feel that the character of Poe at points comes across as a character who's just kind of bland because of the fact that he's just another underdog character, a guy who he has these bigger aspirations. He wants to be a martial arts master, but he doesn't have the faith and the belief in himself, and ultimately he will rise above his doubts and become a master of the martial arts. In this case, he'll become the dragon warrior as long as he believes in himself. And it's a good message, but it's something that even by this point was kind of stale, almost as stale as an ancient, old saying you'd find in a fortune cookie. But it does connect with the heart of the story, which I think is definitely a strength for this screenplay. It has a good heart to it. I think it could have been even better, though. I think the heart is very evident when it comes to Poe and his relationship with his father, Mr. Ping, and also Poe's eventual friendship and connection with Master Shifu, and with the character of Oogway. But I don't feel that as much when it comes to the Furious Five. And also, I think that the villain, Tai Lung, I think the way that he was written is, it's not as interesting as I think the character could have been. And I believe that they were trying to make him more sympathetic, but then they changed stuff around, and then they made him a much less interesting character as a result. And it doesn't help either that the way that he gets defeated by Poe, it really makes his character come across as kind of weak. And I'll get to exactly why I feel that way soon enough. Also, comedy-wise, I know this is a screenplay that a lot of people find to be very funny, very humorous. I didn't really find it to be that funny. I know comedy is something that's very subjective. What one person finds to be funny, the other person might not. But I just didn't really find the sense of humor to be that funny or that witty with this script. I just felt it was just kind of low hanging fruit at points, or just not really funny, more silly than anything, just kind of silly and not really something that I would consider to be laugh out loud hilarious. I mean, even the popular catchphrase that Poe coined in this film, skadoosh, like even that did nothing for me. It just sounds like something you'd see in a comic book to showcase the sound of somebody jumping into a body of water, or something you would see in the Batman TV show from the 60s. It just, I don't know. It just didn't sound very cool. It doesn't really sound memorable. I don't understand why that became such a popular phrase. And I think a lot of the reason why I just find this film to be okay is because of this story. It's just another story about an underdog character who's kind of down in their luck, trying to find a bigger purpose in life in Poe, who's a diehard fan of Kung Fu, wants to become the Dragon Warrior, wants to become a member of the Furious Five to make it a group of six. And apparently, the original script had Poe be an even more obnoxious superfan. And I'm glad they eased back on that, because that would have been really irritating. And apparently, like, his character was um, a lot sharper in terms of, like, he was more blunt until Jack Black was cast in the role, and then they changed things to fit his personality more. And I think that was the right idea, because if this character was more brash and more blunt, then this character would be so much more unlikable. As he is, he's just a character that I find to be serviceable and just kind of there. A lot of people love Poe, but I've never really felt that way about him. I'm just kind of eh. Like, I'm in the middle on him. Like, I felt at the most I would say I can take or leave Poe. I like a lot of the other characters more. Like, I honestly liked Oogway more. I like Shifu more. I even like the villain more in Tai Lung. I like Tigress and Monkey and Crane more. Like, Poe was just a character that was just honestly kind of a bland protagonist, because he's another character who's down on their luck, doesn't believe in themselves, gets this crazy opportunity to train in the martial arts, and fails initially, but then When they're just about to give up, they find some newfound strength, and they figure it out, and they become a warrior, and they beat the odds in the end. And in the process, they also realize that the real power was within them the entire time. It's just kind of a generic character to me. And I definitely don't feel that the overall dynamic between him and the Furious Five is really as good as it could be. And I think that's because there's too many characters. Why did it have to be five? Why couldn't it just be the triumphant trio? Let's just have five of these characters. So that way you can have more time to develop them and develop their dynamic and their connection with Poe. Because as it is, they don't like him. They think he's a joke. They don't like the fact that Oogway chose him over them for a potential dragon warrior, and they're bitter and they're pissed, and they don't want anything to do with this stupid fat panda, and they want him out of their dojo. And then he winds up changing their minds, and they find him to be endearing, and they get inspired by him, and that whole part of it just didn't feel as genuine as I think it could have been. And it just felt like the Furious Five were just very unlikable for throughout a good chunk of the movie, like in a way where they were just being dicks, and not in like a fun way either, just being straight up dicks to Poe. And then eventually they realize that, oh, that's wrong. We need to do something else. We need to be bigger than that. And he's actually somebody who has more potential than we realize. And it doesn't help either that by the end of the movie, all they really do is just help the townspeople uh, evacuate when Tai Lung comes back after he already defeated them on the bridge. And I'm just like, okay, so you build them up to a point where they get defeated by Tai Lung, and then you essentially don't give them a redemption. You don't give them a little bit of the fight. You don't give them their own individual hits in on Tai Lung. Instead, it's all Poe. He's the only one that gets in the final fight. It just felt like the Furious Five were kind of an afterthought. And I honestly felt that they were more interesting than Poe. And speaking of the final fight, I didn't really care for the way that that went down at all. Because Tai Lung, the way that he was written, even though I really would have preferred the more in-depth backstory that I believe they initially had for this character, the writers do a good job in terms of building up this bad guy, making him feel like a real threat. I mean, the whole scene where he escaped from the prison with only a feather is incredible. That, in my opinion, is like the best scene in the movie. And it sets him up as a smart, intelligent, dangerous villain who seems like to be somebody who could legitimately take on everybody. And not only the Furious Five, but take on his old master and Shifu, and take him out and Poe, and take them all on. But then you get to the fight between him and Poe, and he honestly comes across kind of like a, I wouldn't say an outright pussy, but he does kind of come across a lot weaker than what he was built up to be. And I've heard all the explanations. Oh, he was distracted because Poe had the dragon scroll, and Poe saw that there was nothing there, and he saw himself, and the real power is within, and he relayed that information to Ty, and Ty wasn't hearing any of it, and Ty got the scroll and looked at it and saw there was nothing there, and so he got distracted, and I'm like, so he's not as smart as he seems to be. He's somebody who would, in that moment, would just completely freeze in the middle of a fight. I think that honestly is just plot armor for Poe, really. And speaking of plot armor, he literally has plot armor when it comes to his fat, because Tai Lung has this attack that's very nerve based, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't work on Poe because Poe is fat. And I'm like, okay, why did we need that anyway? Why do we need the nerve attack? It's cool looking, but do we really need it? No, I don't think it was really necessary. It just made Tai Lung into somebody who looks like he could only win a fight against the Furious Five and Poe or anyone if he cheats. So it kind of made him look a little weak in that regard as well, despite all the buildup. I think a better approach would have been to not even had the nerve attack to begin with, regardless of how cool it looks. He just defeats his foes in combat. He defeats the Furious Five on the bridge in combat. No tricks, no anything, just defeats them in one-on-one combat. Similar to when the Shredder defeated all the turtles in the 1990 Ninja Turtles film. And I think it would have been a good idea to show Poe use his smarts, use his wits to defeat Tai Lung in the final fight, where you realize that Poe is smarter than you think he is. And there was already a little bit of that anyway in the script, showing that Poe isn't necessarily as dumb as you might think. And I think the writers should have taken a page from Rocky 3 and set it up where Ty, after chasing Poe around and trying to get the Dragon Scroll, he's understandably winded because he already got in a fight with the Furious Five earlier, already fought Shifu, so he's already feeling it. He's starting to kind of get run down. And when Poe opens the Dragon Scroll and sees his reflection in it, he sees in the reflection in the corner of his eye, or in the corner of the reflection on the scroll, actually, he sees Ty like panting a little bit, like he's showing signs of fatigue. So Poe decides to use that to his advantage, and also uses his skills of being kind of annoying to annoy Ty to the point where he gets even more frustrated and loses focus even more, and then in the process burns so much more energy. So it's like the Clubber Lang fight, the rematch with Rocky and Clubber Lang in Rocky 3, where Poe's just annoying him and getting on his nerves, and he's getting frustrated, and he's like throwing big blows, but he's getting tired. He's getting more and more tired until he eventually gets tired enough that he starts missing. And that's when Poe takes advantage and gets the upper hand in the fight. And then that's when he, gives Ty the finger move, which in all honesty, I would have also set that up earlier where you actually make it make sense that he would know that move instead of it just being something he just knows now. And an easy way to do that is just have a scene earlier on with him and Shifu where he's like messing around with Shifu when they're training, and he's all like, "Hey, by the way, I'm doing pretty good. Do you think, you know, you could maybe teach me that finger move?" And then you could have Shifu be like, "I don't know, maybe." Like, you could set up something like that, so then that doesn't come across as so random at the end, like it does in the film. So I felt the ending, all this build up to this fight, and I felt the fight was underwhelming, to be perfectly honest. So I definitely feel that that was another reason why I was just kind of there with the film and there with the story and the overall script. But there still are some good things in it. Like I said, I like the dynamic between Poe and his dad. I like what eventually forms when it comes to a connection between Shifu and Poe. Especially really like the training scene with the dumpling. I really like that a lot, actually. And I don't mind the idea of the Furious Five, but I like the idea of the Triumphant Trio better because I didn't really think Viper added that much or Mantis. Just go with Tigress, Monkey, and Crane. And that way you could save other members to be added for future installments in the franchise. So I think there's just too many members of this team, and it just seemed like it was something that was there because we need to have as many celebrities in the cast as possible more than anything else. But I think there's a strong enough villain here. Poe's kind of a generic protagonist, but he's likable enough that I think you definitely could have still worked enough with the character. I still think the character is endearing enough despite his flaws to make for an adequate protagonist. So I don't think you have to change any of that. I just think that there's a lot of good here. There's some nice words of wisdom by Uguay, and there are some moments that were kind of humorous that kind of got a chuckle out of me. And I do like the idea of the overall concept of it, and I think it lends itself well to some really nice looking animation. But I don't know, the story just was a little lacking to me, and the comedy really didn't do it for me for the most part. Like I said, there's a few moments that might made me chuckle, but nothing that made me laugh out loud like it did for other people when it comes to the comedy in this. So as a comedy, it's kind of underwhelming. As a story, it's kind of underwhelming. But it's not a bad script. I just think that it's just an okay script, and I think it could have been a lot better if some changes were made. Um, but that's just me. The voice cast, I think, is pretty good. I think it's a pretty good voice cast. I mean, Dustin Hoffman, I really liked as Master Shifu. I thought he did a great job embodying the stern nature of this character, as well as the slyness, the way that he initially seems like almost another antagonist. The way that he's treating Poe and the way that he's handling things, but then as the story progresses, he softens and you see a lighter side of him. And I think Dustin did a really good job showing both sides of that character and really making you understand why he was so cold and distant at the start of the story because of what happened with him and Ty. Jack Black, he's just Jack Black. He's just being himself, playing the same role he's always played. Skadoosh, just doing the same shtick. And it's okay, it's fine, but I've never been like the biggest fan of Jack Black. So I think that's another thing. Like Jack Black being Jack Black isn't like a massive selling point to me like it is for other people. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. All right. It's not the worst thing ever. He's done way worse since this. But it's still the kind of thing where I don't know, he can be a bit grating. I mean, I honestly really do prefer Mike Myers as Shrek. I know some people would think, well, Shrek's way more grating, but I disagree. Like I find Shrek to be much more entertaining, enjoyable character to watch and to listen to than Jack Black as Poe. Also, I think Mike Myers is a better actor when it comes to showing more range when it comes to his voiceover work than Jack. Ian McShane as Tai Lung. I really wanted to like his voiceover more than I do because Ian McShane's a good actor and he can be intimidating. He can be cold. He can be menacing. But I don't know. I just didn't hear that as much as I would have liked in this performance. Almost to the point where I wish that somebody like Cary Hiroki Tagawa voiced this character. And plus, it would have been really cool to have seen Carrie do a voice in a pretty major animated film because he never really did that. If you look at his filmography, he's done pretty much everything except like a voiceover role in a major animated theatrical film. You would think that he would have, but he really doesn't have that. He voiced a character in the Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo film, and I think he did some other work on another like direct to video animated movie, but it doesn't seem like he really got that opportunity, and I think that's a shame. I think his intensity would have really been a good fit for Tai Long. The Furious Five, they're okay, but the problem is none of these voice actors really lend anything that unique to their voiceover work to these characters. It just sounds like celebrities just reading lines. Angelina Jolie as Tigress, Seth Rogen as Mantis, Lucy Liu as Viper, David Cross as Crane, Jackie Chan as Monkey. I will say David Cross is the one that I would probably argue is the closest to actually providing something that makes the character come to life more. Because I didn't really feel that way about Jolie. I didn't really feel that way about Rogan, especially, or Lou, or even Chan. Like Chan, it's cool, Jackie Chan and Lucy Liu, but like the characters that they portray in this, that maybe it's due to the writing. They don't have that much to do, don't have that much to say. So maybe that's part of it, but surprisingly enough, I didn't really find these performances to be really that noteworthy, despite the cast. James Hong delivered a more impassioned performance than any of the Furious Five to me as Mr. Ping. Uh, and you also had like Dan Fogler who voiced Zhang, the goose, and I enjoyed his performance. Michael Clarke Duncan was Commander Vashir, the Rhino who was the warden of the prison, and he did some solid work as well. But really, I think it's Dustin Hoffman and Randall Duk Kim who voiced Oogway. Like Randall Duk Kim was really a significant standout to me. I thought his voiceover as Oogway was was incredible. I thought he did a really good job. Like I really liked his performance. It was witty, but also very wise, and it was just a really good performance when it comes to his voiceover work for Oogway, the tortoise. The film also features some editing by Claire Knight that, for the most part, is good. I think it's got some nice put together editing. Like it's not the kind of film that feels like it's too choppy when it comes to the editing. It seems to be, for the most part, pretty seamless when it comes to the transitions or the action sequences or some of the other scenes that have a lot of different stuff going on at once. The animation in particular is honestly awesome. I think that's a huge selling point for this film. Just visually, this is a really nice looking movie with some vivid imagery and some really nice designs and some great animation that still holds up really well even after all this time. And musically, this film is great. I think it features a magnificent score by Hans Zimmer and John Powell. They studied a lot of Chinese music, and you could definitely hear that in this score. And I think it's really, absolutely one of the best parts of the movie is the music. Does a great job just setting a vibe and a tone and a feel and an overall mood just all on its own. So this is a film that the end of the day, I just thought was okay, but I can see why people connected with it and like it. I think it really just depends on how much you really like Poe. If you really get into that character, you see a lot of yourself in him, you really root for him and his journey, then I think this film is going to be very successful for you and very rewarding. But if you're just kind of on the fence with his character, uh, then it's just going to be kind of in the middle overall. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Kung Fu Panda. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.